morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining. At CIQ, we're focused on powering the next generation of software infrastructure, leveraging the capabilities of cloud, hyperscale, and HPC. From research to the enterprise, our customers rely on us for the ultimate Rocky Linux, Werewolf, and Apptainer support escalation. We provide deep development capabilities and solutions, all delivered in the collaborative spirit of open source.
Getting off to a great start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CIQ webinar. My name is Jonathan. You may have seen me here before, but we're missing Zane and Rose today. They're both at Google Next. So if you're at Google Next this week or today, I understand today's the last day of that conference. They're at booth 231 representing CIQ, so stop on by over there and get yourself some great Rocky Linux and CIQ swag. We'd love to see you there, I'm sure. But today, myself and our friends from Enterprise Strategy Group, John Brown, are going to have a little conversation about Rocky Linux and the transition to Rocky that we and I expect many people who might be visiting us today on the webinar are engaged in. So if we can bring John on board. Hello, John.
Hello. Hello.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this conversation, but I understand you've got some topics and some slides to walk us through, and so I'll pass things over to you and yeah, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so I put together a little bit of a backdrop for our discussion on embracing the future by transitioning to Rocky Linux. My name is John Brown. I'm with the Enterprise Strategy Group. We'll do some further introductions. But in terms of agenda for today, we'll do those introductions. I'll share with you some observations about the current state of Enterprise Linux. And then the really interesting part, we'll have a discussion, right? We didn't come here to just do slideware and get on with that.
Excellent.
So let's do that. I suppose we should introduce ourselves. Two guys named Jonathan. They know who you are, but go ahead and give a quick introduction.
Yeah, thanks. So, if you haven't seen me on the webinar before, I've been in academic high-performance computing for a while. I've been kind of in and out of the national lab space and the higher ed space, universities, things like that, just doing HPC clusters. And that brings me to CIQ by way of Werewolf mostly, but also a lot of interest in Rocky Linux and Apptainer, all of which I had used before joining CIQ. So really glad to be part of the team here. And actually, there's been a little bit of a change in my role here at CIQ. I've been doing the solutions architect thing for a while here, but I'm digging in a little bit more with Fuzzball these days. And so emphasizing a bit more of my HPC background and really excited to be a part of that team and be working with them to bring Fuzzball to market.
All right. Well, next time we do this and I update the slide, I'll just put Jonathan Anderson, Fuzzball. Got it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm John Brown. I'm a senior analyst with the Enterprise Strategy Group. I cover off on infrastructure and operations management. Excited to be here and talking about these things. I work for an organization called Enterprise Strategy Group, abbreviated as ESG, that worked perfectly until sustainability became a thing. And now we have to say it out, Enterprise Strategy Group. But we are a large boutique analyst firm covering off on largely B2B technology, how that's getting implemented. We do a good job of predicting the future and helping organizations like Rocky, make sure that they're NCIQ, making sure that their go-to-markets and their market information is up to snuff. So my little pitch for Enterprise Strategy Group, as is required by law. But I did want to, sort of do a level set on a couple of points before we get into the discussion.
Yeah. And actually, real quick, I said this earlier and I totally forgot. There will be a part in this discussion later where we want to answer some questions from the audience. So if you've got some questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll be watching that, and when we get to the part where we're addressing some kind of open-ended questions and we're in that part of the discussion, we'd love to take those questions. So yeah. Thanks. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, sure. Just some basic facts, just some things to level set the conversation here. A couple of quick points. As analysts, we have to sort of wrap things up and tell you what we're seeing. But first and foremost, CentOS 7 support ends in June 2024, which is coming up quickly. Second point is that Rocky Linux is free. It's an open source enterprise operating system that's compatible with Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And we're going to spend the majority of our time today talking about Rocky Linux. Third observation is that CIQ is the founding support and services partner of the Rocky Linux project. And so, we're speaking with the folks that are behind all of this. And I also wanted to, talk a little bit about what's changing in the world of IT, because some of that is important if you're making a decision about an enterprise operating system. Trend 1 and 2 is modernizing infrastructure, going more toward cloud native to support containers and microservices. But when it comes to OS infrastructures, organizations are modernizing their CentOS-related environments to Rocky Linux to preserve their investments and to ensure long-term security and stability. Security and stability. Trend 3, maybe you've heard of this, AI, kind of a thing. What we are finding in our studies is that AI infrastructure relies on HPC, high-performance computing, and this is an area where Rocky Linux has experienced a great deal of uptake. So against that backdrop and those facts, let us have a discussion and dive a little bit more deeply into Rocky Linux and CIQ. So, Jonathan, first question out to you. There's a ton of Linux distributions that enterprises can choose from. What separates Rocky Linux from the other available Linux distros that are there?
So a lot that comes down to, a lot that goes into, the discussion or the decision of picking a Linux distribution for whatever use case is the culture and I don't even necessarily mean like the people culture, but kind of the business organization culture around what the priorities are of different distributions. People have tended to use the enterprise Linux family of distributions for this long-term stability, both at the hardware side of knowing if I have this OS and it runs on this hardware, it will continue to run on this hardware for a 10-year time period or more. But also if I have applications that run on it, they will continue to do so, often without modification or without having to make any changes to keep it running for that long time period, and then keep that platform supported over that time period. So if you've come up in any of the enterprise Linux environments, Red Hat Enterprise Linux or CentOS, or some of the new ones, another one from the past has been Scientific Linux, which has been a part of this conversation as well. But new ones being Rocky, if you're using Rocky today, or if you're using Alma, or any of these things that are a part of this enterprise Linux family of distributions, you'll be right at home with Rocky. It's one-for-one compatible rebuild of the Red Hat platform, the enterprise Linux platform, and is expected to be so for the foreseeable future. And then, with CIQ, you have benefits of support within that platform. One of the things I like to highlight is that you don't have this separation of your supported and unsupported environment. You don't have CIQ operating system and Rocky Linux for the different parts of your infrastructure. You can just run one thing everywhere and then apply support as needed. Yeah.
I mean, okay, good. How's that been accepted by the Linux community? I mean, are you getting the downloads? Are you seeing that acceptance?
Yeah, great. So I've got a slide here to show, if we can get that up for this. And these are statistics. We've talked about these before. These are inherently limited statistics, but this is the best data that we have, and something that we track internally, just both on the community side and the CIQ side, is something that's interesting. So this is unique systems accessing from different enterprise Linuxes the extra packages for enterprise Linux projects. So there's a community project for providing, unsupported packages for the enterprise Linux family of distributions. And this is a statistic that they gather. How old is a system that has accessed it, and from what distribution? And so we see, Rocky Linux with the heavy green line here going up and to the right, which of course we like to see. And we're actually beating
a lot in analyst school, but upward and to the right is generally a positive sign. And this data looks very real. It's as messy as real life.
Yes. So there's an uptick in everything right now. If you see right at the very rightmost part of the graph, we expect that this is about kind of testing the waters on different distributions as part of a CentOS 7 migration strategy. One of the things you mentioned earlier is CentOS 7, which has a huge distribution footprint. What do I want to say? Yeah, footprint. There we go. Thank you. A huge distribution footprint is going end of life very soon now. And so we see an uptick everywhere across the board as people are, doing test deployments with different distributions. And this includes this yellow CentOS legacy, which we would expect is mostly CentOS 7. Could in theory be CentOS 8, but very unlikely.
So there was some that CentOS 7 spike. And then we can see that comes off, and you guys actually change slope of your line to start accelerating pretty hard in the last couple of periods here. So it looks like this is a graph of crunch time.
Yep. So we're excited by this, of course, and this is the best data we have. The limitations of it are clearly not everyone uses Apple, and in fact, the more enterprisey you are, the less likely to use it you are. But still, it's pretty well used even in enterprise workloads. And then the other thing is, the bigger you are, the more likely you are to use a local mirror of Apple and not be hitting the upstream. So the data gets fuzzy on the extremes of the type of deployment you are, but
directionally,
it seems to be going in a good direction.
Yeah, you see acceleration like this, and you can reasonably assume that that's what you're going to see elsewhere. And you guys actually probably, you can look at what's happening in the support queues and what's going on in the forums, to be able to gauge and get a real good idea of who's new, who's testing.
Yes, and there we can see that there's a lot of traffic in the community at Rocky Linux, but then we lose the comparison. We're, of course, not as embedded in the support infrastructure of another commercial enterprise Linux, or even in the community side of other enterprise Linux community distributions.
Yeah. I mean, great data here. I mean, certainly indicative of uptake. Now, you had previously talked a little bit about support, and how there's no division between CIQ and Rocky Linux itself. Can you talk to me about why enterprise class support, which you folks offer, is of value and worth the investment?
Sure. So I do want to make one clarification there, so that there is a distinction between CIQ and Rocky Linux, for sure, between the community side and the enterprise support that we provide. And this is a confusion that comes up a lot, so I just don't want to mislead people. The community distribution is an independent entity run by the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation, or RESF. But the benefit that I'm talking about is we support the community distribution. So there isn't like a special enterprise version of Rocky Linux that you have to deploy or maintain separately. Benefits of enterprise support that you get from CIQ are, trouble ticketing. If you have a problem with the operating system from a use perspective or from a bug perspective, we can help either address problems that you're having. We build custom images for our clients for use on clouds or in local like Kubernetes environments, that kind of thing. We've gone as far as building a whole OS tree variant of Rocky Linux for deployment in immutable environments, which has been a whole project that's been pretty interesting.
Immutable environments, so frozen in time, like we set it up and.
Yeah. So the whole OS tree thing is about not deploying new new updates into the running system, but deploying kind of a new system alongside it, and then you switch back and forth depending.
Gotcha.
So yeah, none of that existed for Rocky Linux, but we worked on that image, and I think that either is or is on its way into the community side of things too, even though it was developed in-house. But that's something that we did with one of our clients. But then if you find a bug in a package, whether it's a security problem or a functionality problem, we can work with you to understand your use case and get it resolved, and get it resolved locally, and then try and get that fix upstreamed either into the CentOS community or the Fedora community or one of the real upstream projects. And we're doing a bit of that even at the kernel level. We have a client that's having some performance issues with NVMe storage, and not I/O performance, but kind of management of those devices. And we're working to get fixes for that in the upstream kernel.
And so if they hadn't been part of that, if they hadn't been part of support and had that support, they would not have been able to work with you in that way.
Yeah, and they of course can, the value of open source, they can do that themselves. They can work on that and then try and get it upstream. But that's a service that we provide, is digging in with you and understanding a problem you're having, and then working with getting that fix into the communities that we then all benefit.
Yeah, and I would imagine having access to your engineers, who are there working at that kernel level, really makes a huge difference in the level of support.
Yeah.
Get.
Absolutely. And then beyond just the kind of frontline support, break fix, troubleshooting, that kind of thing, helping you use one of these projects or products, we also have value adds that we support as part of the Enterprise Linux platform on top of Rocky Linux. So one that I'm really excited about are we package upstream stable and long-term maintenance kernels for use with Rocky Linux. So one of the reasons people use an Enterprise Linux distribution is this very long-term, frozen in time, and then security supported kernel.
Yeah.
But there are downsides to that. You don't get performance improvements or new features that are coming out in the new kernel, every month or every 2 months.
Yeah, it's really a question of whether you have to have an IT audit team you need to satisfy.
Yeah. But if you're more interested in using the stable user space of Enterprise Linux that you get with Rocky, but you'd like the new hardware support or new performance or new functionality that you would get from an upstream kernel, we're offering that as an add-on that's not part of Rocky Linux, but is something that you can use in conjunction with Rocky Linux as part of a CIQ supported platform.
Neat. Okay. All right. That gives me a good feel for the level of support and what you guys offer in the space. We did, unless you had something else, we do have a couple of questions that have come in from the audience, and I will also lean on the webcast producer in case there are some other questions that need to be surfaced that I can't see. But the first question that comes up is about HPC and AI, and how can Rocky Linux help in the context of HPC and for us building out our AI environment?
Yeah, so in HPC, at least any HPC environment I've been a part of, Enterprise Linux is really well established. I mean, CentOS has been a player in HPC for as long as my career, and maybe longer. And Rocky Linux just is a drop-in replacement if you've been using CentOS, for sure. And certainly, if you're often what happens is you're at a site that has a larger Enterprise Linux footprint, as you said, but then you have a CentOS deployment in your academic or research portion of your institute. We would like to think that you could continue using Rocky Linux in the same community focused way that you have for however long you've been in HPC, just by replacing CentOS with it. But then because there is commercial support available for Rocky, we can have that conversation with a larger IT organization about, maybe instead of having these two different distributions that you're having to maintain and manage separately, there's a benefit to bringing that all into one deployment strategy. For AI, we expect most of that growth to come in cloud deployments. And so we have some partnerships with the big players in cloud I think we can talk about now that we're we're just starting a new partnership with Google to be part of both the backend infrastructure and the user accessible kind of running the user application in Rocky Linux. And so we've been doing some work with Google to both customize Rocky Linux for performance and reliability on the Google infrastructure, but also to make sure that it's the best scenario possible when using it to manage your applications on that Google infrastructure. And you get the same benefits there that you would get anywhere else: long-term stability, long-term support, and a familiar environment that you're probably already using.
Yep. Okay. Fantastic. I have another question here. I don't know if you want to take this one or not, but I'll read it to you. It says, "Hey,
let's go for it.
We use Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Are there situations where Rocky is a better fit than Red Hat?"
So from a technical standpoint, like the whole point is that they're the same, right? So it should be, for the most part, drop in and just use it like you're using it. The reason you might want to prefer Rocky in the same way that you might have preferred CentOS before over, a commercial distribution like Red Hat's Enterprise Linux is the licensing model, is the biggest thing to me. So for the most part, in a production environment, you're typically paying per core or per node or per virtual machine or something like that for access to an Enterprise Linux commercial distribution. Clearly, in the community, that's not the case, and it hasn't been the case with CentOS forever. It's community operating system. You can download it and install it. But one of the things that I really appreciate about CIQ's support offering, the way we say it, is that we support the people, not the computers. I sometimes say we support people, not processors. And so our support is scaled by the size of your team. At a technical level, it's the number of people that can open trouble tickets with us. And so it's not the number of users, it's not how many people are in your organization, but however many people that we're supporting, that's what you pay for with Rocky Linux support.
That's refreshing. And so that's I like that.
And this comes back to that bifurcation of your support infrastructure. You don't have like a thing that would happen. It's a secret. Don't tell anyone. A thing that would happen is you'd have like a few commercially supported servers and then a large deployment of community stuff. And then you have a problem over there, and now you have to go replicate it in your supported environment before you can open a case. You don't have to worry about that with us. If you are running Rocky Linux and you are a supported person, we'll support you wherever you're running, whether it's in the cloud, it's in a virtual infrastructure, it's on a cluster. Wherever you are, we'll support
that's super refreshing, actually. That's an interesting way to scale, and it actually is indicative of the support you're getting. And so I like that as opposed to processor-based licensing. As a former product manager, licensing was always, you're always trying to scale it and extract the most value. And I like that yours is really predicated on how much value you're delivering, as opposed to, trying to maximize that number, as much as possible. So that is refreshing. The last question that's here, this one looks like a trivia question largely, but it's, hey, what's the largest implementation of Rocky Linux that you're aware of? Like, who's the giant enterprise,
Yeah, so I'm not in a position to name individual clients, but I can say that we have at least a couple partners in kind of the academia or national lab space, especially, where they're running Rocky Linux on some hundreds to thousands of compute nodes. And in that kind of classic deployment sense, that's where my mind goes, are those couple of people that I know that are doing it in some pretty large
some of the big
HPC
labs,
deployments.
That are running
that kind of thing.
PC clusters.
But the real truth is probably in the clouds and in the hyperscalers, and there we just don't have the data. I think as our partnerships with those providers solidifies, we'll be getting some more of that data. But I certainly don't have it. And my recent recollection is that we've actually been trying to get some of that information out of our partners. Just how many people are running Rocky Linux in Google and Amazon?
That would be a good statistic. A good statistic to have.
We're working
see how
on
that's
it.
changing as well. All right. Well, that was the time we had for Q&A here. So we're at the end of our scheduled talk. We're coming right up on 29 minutes or so. Last question. Where can people go? Where should they go to get more information about Rocky Linux?
Great. So on the community side, rockylinux.org is a great place to start. There's forums, there's documentation for how the operating system is laid out, how the project is laid out, if you're interested in getting involved. And from there, the best place to go is the Rocky Linux Mattermost. It's a chat platform very similar to Slack, if you're familiar with that. That's where most of the community discourse happens, both from an organization and making the work and the distribution happen in the first place, but also for people that use the distribution and need help or have questions or any of that.
Okay.
From a CIQ perspective, CIQ.com. If you're interested in talking with us about support or some of the value adds that we offer on top of the Rocky Linux and Enterprise Linux platform, there's an easy contact us button right there on the front page, or you can explore around, look at some of the products, which exceeds just Rocky Linux. We, as I mentioned before, support Werewolf and Apptainer and Ascender, which is an Ansible orchestration platform, and a few other things. So by all means, check us out at ciq.com, look around in there, contact us through that if you'd like more information, or get in touch with the community at rockylinux.org.
Outstanding. Well, Jonathan, it's been a pleasure talking to you, the twin Jonathan
Likewise.
show. Hopefully this was informative for the folks that stayed with us over the webcast. I had fun. I would do it again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for being here, and thank you for some of the market investigation and kind of helping to set the groundwork for understanding what's going on in the enterprise and Linux space in general, helping us out with that.
Well, cool. Well, I feel done, so our producer can go ahead and end.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining the webinar. We hope that you'll join us again next week, same time as always. And I guess I don't know the topic for next week, but I'm sure it'll be something interesting.
It's gonna be good. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone.